Hi everyone, Don't Think Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Tyler the Creator album, SCUM. Flower Boy. Yellow flannel is on, review is going, camera's on, microphone is on. Over here, cute Calchuchesta making out with a picture of Tyler the Creator, and I think we are ready to start the review. This is the latest full-length album from California rapper Tyler the Creator, once the flagship member of the slightly defunct Odd Future Wolfgang Kill Them All, a West Coast rap collective whose member-to-member relations seem more tentative than ever. I mean, they're still kind of a thing. But in my opinion, Odd Future kind of waning a little bit as a group is not necessarily a bad thing, because there's always been a massive talent gap between the group's best and worst members. And with that separation, I've been hoping that the group's best members kind of find more clarity in their work, especially Tyler over here, who I have been kind of disappointed in his past efforts because I feel like he is one of the members of the collective who has had the most potential, which I hoped would be capitalized on with each new release. And yet, however, in the lead up to this new album over here, it felt like Flower Boy, for me at least, was going to be that artistically defining moment for Tyler. Not because of the revelations about his sexuality peppered throughout some of the lyrics on this album, which the music media and sensationalist hip-hop fans made a bigger deal of than Tyler's actual core fan base. But some of the lead singles on this thing, like Who Dat Boy and 911/Mr. Lonely, in my opinion, were some of Tyler's best material to date. It finally felt like Tyler was brushing up on his rapping and his production skills, his flows were smoother, his performance seemed more animated than amateur, the production was well mixed, well balanced, heavy, hard-hitting, bassy, and exciting and visceral on Who Dat. Some of the finer and smoother and jazzier moments on some of the lead singles to this thing were very beautiful. The awkwardness and the clunkiness that ruined some of Tyler's slow jams in the past, especially on Cherry Bomb, seems to have kind of dissipated. So going into this record, I was looking forward and hoping to hear a Tyler album that wasn't plagued by some of the same technical flaws that made some of his past work just a difficult listen. But one more thing that had me excited on the lead up to this record is that everything has been relatively silent on the social media and the headline front, meaning it's been a while since Tyler's been embroiled in a lot of the same internet drama that seemed to be kind of informing a lot of the lyrical content on his past work, much of which I just found really uninteresting and petty and boring. Now I feel like I'm finally able to hear a record where Tyler is just completely out of the woods on this endless feedback cycle between him and the music media. And now that he's out of that bubble, I'm just kind of curious to see if he has anything interesting to say. Is there really anything to him just beyond being confrontational with his online detractors? And Tyler actually does have a lot of interesting things to say on this record right from the start of it on the track Forward. Tyler hits listeners with a nice string of thoughtful rhymes coated with some strong wordplay, and it's almost like he's questioning just how much longer he has in the limelight, or if he'll continue exceeding expectations as he has in the past. This is kind of an introspective side of Tyler that I found very interesting on Bastard when I heard it, but I only got little bits of it in the future once Odd Future blew up. And one more thing I found pretty striking on this track, as well as other cuts on here, are all these references to materialism, cars, chains, things that Tyler really seems to be infatuated with on this new record, but in the past was something that he didn't really care about or would actively talk shit about caring about, which almost kind of leads me to believe that he's using things like cars to fill a void that's very clearly informing the moodiness of a lot of songs on this project, like Pothole and Boredom and Garden Shed. There are a lot of songs on this thing that have this dreamy yet dreary aesthetic. Like many cuts that were on Cherry Bomb, they're smooth, they're lavishly layered, they're jazzy, they're soulful. However, this time I feel like we're dealing with instrumentals and songs that are much more solidly composed and gorgeously arranged too. And just the sound of this thing, man. I've never been so impressed with just the sound of the instrumentation on a Tyler project, which in the past, especially on Goblin, has come off kind of shoddy. By comparison, Flower Boy is expansive, it's kaleidoscopic, it's so intricate. It just sounds like Tyler is finally coming into his own as a producer, while still showcasing a lot of the things that made his music special in the first place, this deep appreciation of jazz, and a very healthy dose of Pharrell worship, which turns up on a lot of the percussion patterns in the beats, or in some of the quirky synthesizer leads that squawk their way through some of these very smooth instrumentals. If I had to pick on one instrumental on this record though, it would be Where This Flower Blooms featuring Frank Ocean. It's one of the few beats on this thing I found to be kind of hollow, a little lifeless and flat. Tyler doesn't have the most passionate delivery on the track, and Frank Ocean I think leaves a little bit to be desired. The kind of lazy demeanor to his performance I think works a little bit better when he appears on the song 911. Generally though, I think the features on this thing do add a lot to the record. Tyler really did string together some pretty capable singers to carry some of the jazzier interludes on this thing. Even Jaden Smith on this thing, who I was not anticipating liking at all. I feel like his boyish voice and very stone-cold demeanor played very nicely against Tyler's very cartoony rasp. And Lil Wayne's feature on Droppin' Seeds actually played very nicely into the floral themes that are kind of peppered throughout the record. So not only are there a lot of good guests on this thing, but there's so many sticky melodies and hooks. 2020, 2020 vision. Who that boy? Who him is? Who that boy? Who him is? Gotta check. Find some time to do something. I'm just surprised at how many moments on this record cemented themselves in my head, even after just a few listens of the album. It just felt really easy to become very familiar with the album very quickly, and yet it still feels like I'm peeling back little musical details and intricacies each time I listen. Now, as far as the lyrical content goes on this thing, I feel like we're finally getting an opportunity to unravel Tyler as a personality and kind of a weird musical celebrity, a weird popular culture enigma. Kind of like this album is just a fainting couch for him to lay on as he tells us everything that's been driving him crazy over the past few years, and we're just a silent therapist listening and nodding. But I think a lot of what Tyler says on this thing kind of boils down to the dichotomy of the title of the album itself, SCUM, fuck, Flower Boy. Just think of those two phrases kind of playing off of each other, what each one signifies. Though I do think that this album is more Flower Boy than it is Scumfuck. There are a few grimy bangers on this thing, like I Ain't Got Time and Who Dat Boy. But even on these tracks, you'll find lines where Tyler is talking about his sexuality, his queerness, making reference to more of that Flower Boy side of the title. And after listening to this entire album, I don't so much feel like we're talking about two sides of Tyler that are at war or at odds with one another. Rather, I came away from this record feeling like these two sides are a little more like yin and yang. They're kind of deeply ingrained and informed by one another and very inseparable. And it's not like the tracks in the track listing that are more sonically smooth and soulful and sugary don't have any bite to them either. We have lots of lyrics on the softer cuts here where Tyler makes reference to his kind of lone wolf status, his tendency to push people away, his loneliness, how he's just kind of unapologetic about his somewhat antisocial behavior. Yet this album also shows Tyler at his softest, I think, the softest we've ever seen him in his entire discography, putting out some actually like very capable love songs on this thing. Other tracks on here are more about his insecurities, his struggle to be himself, his sexuality, his vulnerability, which I think if there's one word that you could boil a lot of this album down to, it's that. This is a legitimately emotional and personal album from Tyler, the creator. Tyler, the freaking creator. Like, if you told me when Goblin came out, we'd eventually be here, I might have laughed in your face. But somehow the album ends up being pretty gratifying and relatable too, and actually works beyond the Tyler the Creator and Odd Future cult of personality. A few tracks in the track listing pale in comparison to others, and I think that I would have been more interested to see Tyler organize some of these thoughts into more bite-sized and cohesive and focused tracks, taking on specific topics with each song. Occasionally he does do that, but not throughout. But most of the time I just kind of feel like I'm listening to Tyler just spill out the contents of a toy box or something, which is not necessarily a bad thing because it's very fun and very easy to sort of sift through all of what he's saying. My last major critique of the album is really that it does not end on the strongest of notes. I don't really feel like the song Glitter is all that much of a final statement or a thematic wrap-up to everything that Tyler has sort of dumped on us with this record. It's lovey-dovey, it's pretty, it's kind of well put together, and it expands the space of Tyler's softer side on this record, but it's essentially the last song of the album, with the actual last track of the record just being this extended instrumental, which I kind of like. It's a decent instrumental. Tyler is clearly trying to tell us something with the title of this instrumental too, but really what does it say as far as a summation of everything this album has been about thus far? Not really much. Still though, despite those shortcomings, I think this album is Tyler's best effort to date. It's a very tight 47 minutes, it's his best produced album, his best written and conceived album, his best performed and rapped album, and I loved a great deal of the tracks on this thing. I'm feeling a decent to strong 8 on this record. Transition. Have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe, and please don't cry. Just leave an angry comment in the comments if you're angry. And there's another Tyler, the Creator review next to my head over here that you should check out. Or you can click to subscribe to the channel, and that's it. I'll see you guys in the next video. Tyler, the Creator, Flower Boy, forever.